I'm Tabitha, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about the things I love. And today we're going to be talking about my favorite reads of 2025. Now, all of these, they include books that were released this year as well as books that were not released this year, just books I read this year. There's quite a long list, so I'm excited to get into it. I'm going to be trying to do them in order of where I've read them this year, and not order from like least favorite to most favorite, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's get started. We're gonna start this out strong with the first book that I read this year that I really liked, and that is Onyx Storm, the third book in the Fourth Wing series, or I think it's called like the Empyrean series or something like that. I am part of the group that absolutely loved Onyx Storm. I thought that this expanded the world in a way that was so interesting and so good. I loved the character development. I loved the subtle themes of like leadership and what makes a good leader. I liked the relationship building in this book. I don't want to go too far into this one because I do plan on speaking in depth about these books, but because this one is part of a series, and this the third book in a series at that, I'm going to keep this one pretty vague because I can't really get into the depths of it without spoiling the rest of the series. But I'll just say that if you are on the fence about reading Fourth Wing, I definitely recommend you try it. Because the worst things that happen is you read Fourth Wing and you don't like it and you move on. The best thing that happens is you absolutely love the series and it changes your life. So why not? And then the next book I really liked this year was By a Thread by Lucy Score. Now, I haven't read a lot of contemporary romance this year, but I remember just really liking this one. It was a 4-star read, like it wasn't a 5-star. Not all of these are 5 stars, but it was definitely memorable. I liked the kind of boss-employee dynamic. That's something that I really enjoyed. I also liked how fiery the main character was and how it pissed off the male main character. But also, the reason it didn't get 5 stars is because of the third act breakup at the end. Like, I never vibe with that. And the book was entirely too long. There were so many things that could have been resolved so much earlier. But it's got some of the best tropes. Like, I haven't read any of other Lucy Score books, but this definitely made me want to read more Lucy Score books. Like, I don't it was fun. The spice, when it did come up, was good. Like, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Up next, this is a book I originally read as an ebook, and I liked it so much I got a physical copy of it. But Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. This one follows a boy who he is in a boarding school, and he's like, you know, he's kind of in trouble. His heart's not fully in it, but he has a crush on his best friend, and together they kind of create stories. Like, he writes stories and his friend basically draws the creatures from his stories, and of course they're always kind of horrific, right? They're horrific, kind of horrorist like monster kind of scenarios. Well, suddenly monsters start attacking the school, and honestly the forest as a whole starts attacking the school. And the way that this dives into this character's angst, and the way that you cannot fully tell how reliable this narrator is, on top of just the like boarding school like setting. Now, I wouldn't say this is like dark academia necessarily, because the academia part of it is very little. Like, he honestly doesn't pay that much attention in class, so it's not about the academics, but about creativity and the relationship between him and his friend, and him like being into his friend and worried about his friend rejecting him because his friend might not be gay, and all of that. And it's a YA psychological thriller. So I have another book by this author sitting on my TBR shelf that I cannot wait to read because of how much I love this one. And it's the same kind of like forest rot aesthetic, which I think I found that forest rot books might just be my favorite. But yeah. Next up is Sunrise on the Reaping. Now I was never like a Hunger Games like middle schooler, but I did like last year read the Hunger Games series for the first time and thoroughly enjoyed it. And so being able to read this one with everyone else when it came out, I read it through the library, but ooh, was it? It hurt. It did hurt. Though I would say, unlike a lot of people, I didn't cry, but it was so interesting to see Haymitch's games and to see like what events in his life led to who he was in Hunger Games. And it really like just like built the world. It continued on the lore of Songbirds and Snakes, which by the way I haven't read, but I know from other people who have talked about the book that it continues on that lore. I want to give it a try, but I'm a little bit nervous because I don't like how it's kind of giving Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes with who the girl in that, but that's beside the point. Songbirds and Snakes, however, thoroughly enjoyed. I cannot wait for the movie to come out. Like, just the little trailers that it showed, it's gonna be a good one. It'll fit into the movie franchise perfectly, which, by the way, mini Hunger Games rant, the movie franchise, I feel like, took out a lot of, like, the political depth of the stories in order to make it more of an action romance story when it is far beyond an action romance story. Like the whole Peta, I'm sorry, I called him Peter. The whole Peta and Gale, like, love triangle thing, that should not have been a thing when the series was really big. Like, that whole love triangle, like, Team Peta, Team Gale thing should have never happened, because that's not what the story was actually about. But I digress. Next up is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Again, this one was a little bit controversial when it came out because there was some people that didn't like it as much, and there's some people that really liked it. And I was in the second category. Now, I haven't read a lot of Ali Hazelwood's works. The only other book of hers I read is Bride, which I did like Bride, which, by the way, haven't read the second book yet. It's on my list. Haven't gotten to it yet. But that's beside the point. And maybe out of, like, all of her books, maybe it's not one of the best. You know, like, maybe all those who are a deep fan of hers, maybe, like, it's kind of mid, which I understand. But as someone that hasn't read very much of her works, I really enjoyed the story. Like, the fact that it was about, like, swimmers, which I'm not normally a sports person. Like, I would never be a sports romance girl. Like, I'm not going to be reading any hockey romance anytime soon. However, I really enjoy the competitive swimming aspect, though that being said, swimming is one of the few sports that interest me, so, but the intricacies of diving and like getting into the Olympics and the careers around swimming, as well as like discussions of like BDSD, you know, or BDSM. BDSD is not a thing. I'm sorry. I'm filming this after work, so my brain is a little bit fried. But like there was like, it wasn't the best representation of BDSM because like it was pretty tame. Like it definitely could have gone. It could have gone more, you know. But I enjoyed what was there. I enjoyed the level of spiciness and like how the situation set up because. And, like, it's almost kind of a little awkward because it's her friend that sets her up with the friend's ex-boyfriend because she's just kind of like, oh, you're both into that kinky shit. You guys should get together. And they're like, you know what? And then they do. That's not a spoiler, I feel like. I feel like from the cover alone, you know that's coming. You get it? You get it? Never mind. Now I get to talk about one of my absolute top books of the year, which is The Raven Scholar. This book is definitely on the list of books I need a physical copy of. I adored The Raven Scholar. It follows the main character who she has been for most of her life the Raven Scholar, who basically was the scholar for the king, and she was allowed to just research whatever she wanted. And the king gave her a nice place to live, high regards, all of that. Or I guess he's technically an emperor, not a king. But it's the year where there's going to be trials to determine who the next emperor is going to be. And there are all these different factions that are named after animals. Like, you've got, like, the monkey faction, and, like, the fox faction, and the raven faction. And, like, I think the ox faction, the bear faction, which the current emperor is a bear emperor. And they all, like, represent, like, these different, like, qualities of a personality. And obviously the ravens are, like, the more scholarly types. And you kind of, as you follow these twisting turns of events, I'm not sure how much I can give away that counts as a spoiler, because, like, there is something that happens that sets the whole trajectory of the story near the beginning, but it's not at the very, very beginning. So maybe I'll hold back. I won't give up too much, because I also went into this book mostly blind, and I have personally found when I go into books blind, I like them better. Maybe it's because I don't have an expectation of what the story's gonna be, so it can't disappoint me, you know? But, I mean, that being said, the writing in this was fantastic. It did interesting things with who the narrator of the story was that I greatly appreciated. Like, books like this are the reason I love reading fantasy. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Switching gears, by literally switching genres, the writing retreat, I actually forgot that I read it this year, because for some reason I thought I read it last year, but I loved the writing retreat. This follows, obviously this woman's a writer, but she hasn't really been able to, like, finish her book. Like, she's had major writing block, and I think she's a journalist, technically, at the beginning, and she gets the opportunity to go on a writing retreat with her favorite author, who it's just gonna be her and a bunch of other authors, or authors-to-be, who all admire this woman, and at the end of the retreat, one of them is gonna get a book published. But when she like even quits her job, because she's just like, I need to take this opportunity. And her ex-girlfriend also ends up being at this writing retreat, which makes things definitely a little awkward. It definitely gets a little bit cliquey. But then red flags start coming up with the author, right? Like, she's like hot and cold, she's kind of mean, like, she's very vicious, but at the same time she's giving, like, advice that's really, like, helping the main character break past her writer's block and basically create, like, a whole new story. And it starts going down. Like, it's kind of slow, it's definitely more of a slow build, but I was, like, enraptured with it from the very beginning. Like, I did not mind the slowness, because I was interested in what was happening even before the part that makes it a thriller takes place. But maybe just because as someone that is writing a book, I thought that whole, like, struggle that the main character was having at the beginning, it just struck home a little bit, you know? So I definitely recommend, obviously I recommend all the books in this video. I'm just using that as a filler sentence when I don't know how to end. The next book I want to talk about is a YA fantasy, Legendborn. I only read the first book so far. I need to get to reading the second and third book. It's definitely on my list for next year, because I really enjoyed Legendborn. Now, I'm not super familiar with the legend of Arthur and his Knights at the Round Table, but I know, like, some, right? Like, I know some of the basics. So this was, like, the perfect amount of information for me as someone who doesn't know a lot. I enjoyed the magic system quite thoroughly. This follows, obviously, the main character. She's actually technically, like she's at this college as, like, some sort of, like, a student program, because she's technically not old enough to be a college student quite yet. But she had good enough grades, I think, or something like that, where she gets to go into this prestigious university that her mom went to. But her mom is also now dead. And so she, in this book, is going through a lot of grief around her mother and that whole situation, on top of going to the school that her mother went to. And she went to the school against her father's wishes, kind of. Though he let her go. Like, he gave permission, but he kind of didn't want her to. But now she's there, and then she basically sees a demon and sees these people fighting the demon, and she's like, I need to get into that. And it's a wonderful story about like her not only breaking into this secret society of those descended from Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, but it also gets into like the atrocities that happened when like slavery was a thing, and how that generational trauma continued to trickle down throughout the years, and the systematic oppression that has continued to follow them throughout all of this time. And I I loved it. I thought it was a story with a powerful message that I am glad is in like school, like high school libraries, middle school libraries. Though I don't know, maybe the romance might be a little on the mature side for a middle schooler, but like the 8th graders I feel like could really get into this, because like it is again YA, so the romance is pretty clean, but that's beside the point. Also, out of the two love interests, I'm not gonna say like their names because I don't want to give it away, but one of them, I don't know why, but the entire time I was reading the story, all I could think of is like when I pictured him was Levi Ackerman from Attack on Titan. So that definitely made him more attractive to me. Anyway, let's move on. The next book we're going to talk about is another one on my top reads of the year, The Incandescent. This is another one where I went in completely blind, not knowing what to expect, and was pleasantly surprised every turn of the way. This book is about a director of a boarding school, and she's the director of magic. Because her boarding school is like for students with magic, basically, or where they teach magic, and she focuses specifically on demon summoning and like the academics around summoning demons and keeping the world safe from demons and all of that stuff, which was already on its own fascinating. And the fact that we're following a main character who is in, I think it was her late 30s, which is a nice change of pace from the usual fantasy protagonist that's in their, late teens, early 20s. And so we get to see her basically going through these situations where normally, like, there's even like a group of students that would be the type of people we would normally been following. Like, there's a student in particular that is all of the like makeup of your normal fantasy FMC, but she's just a side character that the main character is teaching in her class. And obviously she gets into a whole bunch of shenanigans because she is FMC material. But instead we get to see the way the teacher approaches these situations. There's also like the fun like back and forth between her and the sheriff of the school. There is so much like great world building. Like, I could see this as being a school that existed. Also, I don't know how to run a school, so like, if you're a director of a boarding school and you read this and you're like, that's not how it works at all, I'm sorry. Obviously I am not a director of a boarding school. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. This is one of those that a movie adaptation would be fantastic. Slight change of tone, but I also read and loved Homegoing. Now, this one has actually been on my radar for a while, because it was recommended on one of the podcast shows I listened to, and it follows the lineages of these two girls. One girl was raised in this village and ended up being sold to, because it starts taking place in Africa, and she gets sold to one of the white men basically as his bride. And though she's like stays in Africa, and it follows her and then what happened and like her kid and like her bloodline of how they like ended up integrating into like African society after being associated with the white man and all of that. And then on the other sister is the one that gets sold into slavery, which they're half sisters because it turns out that they shared like the same mother, I think it was, but born in two different villages. So the other one gets sold into slavery and makes the trip across to America, and then we follow her descendants in America, as slaves and then as freed people that still suffer from oppression, and how they eventually in the end intertwine. It was a beautiful story. It was heart-wrenching. It was tragic, but it was so well done. It's one of those books that I think everyone should read. It's definitely a book I could see being taught in English classes in high school or even college. Like, I think there's definitely important messages here. So obviously, it's a 5-star read. Yeah. And the next one, again, another top read, is The Sirens. Now, this one, I'm not going to say I didn't know what to expect, because I did have a somewhat of an idea what it was going to be about, but the directions it went, like the plot twists, were amazing in this, actually. Like, some of them I was able to guess. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily fault books for me being able to guess the plot twist, because I feel like it's hard to do something, like, original that people don't see coming, you know? But, like, there was definitely, again, stuff that I personally didn't see coming. It follows the main character. She basically wakes up to herself strangling this boy that she was involved with. Like, she was like sleepwalking and was strangling her in his sleep, or strangling him in her sleep. And she, after this incident, like, runs away because, like, she is terrified of the consequences, and she runs and drives all the way out to where her sister lives, though her sister's not answering any of her phone calls. And when she gets there, the house is completely abandoned. So then she does spend a good amount of time there trying to figure out where her sister is, what happens, why no one has seen her. And also, so her and her sister were kind of estranged. They were closer when they were younger, but her sister always held her, like, you know, at arm's length. And so she's finally getting to see into her sister's life. And she finds her sister's journals from back when they were a lot younger. And she starts finding out some information that she never knew about her sister. And all at the same time, she is having these dreams. And it is a dual timeline book, so we actually get to see what she's dreaming as a dual timeline, like, chapters. But she has having these dreams of these two sisters way back when Australia was first colonized. I think they were Irish, and they are prisoners that were chosen to colonize Australia, and they were part of a boat that tragically sank. And you kind of get to see their story of, like, what happened to their experience on the boat. And there is a sort of, I don't know if magic realism is the right word for it, because I don't know how realistic magic realism needs to be, but there is a fun, as you can tell from the tale, a fun, like, sort of like mermaid siren twist on everything that is absolutely fantastic. So yeah. Alright, up next, I have a physical copy for this one. My next, again, favorite read of the year is Acorna. Now, this series is technically really old. It is a mix of fantasy and sci-fi, and it follows this I don't know how the right way to, like, a ship of miners. They are space miners where they go out to, like, asteroids and comets and stuff, and they, like, extract, like, metals and resources from them and then sell those metals and resources for money. And it's obviously, like, a job that keeps them out in space for long periods of time. Just those three, you know, they do their thing, they get as much as they could, and then they go to, like, a planet and sell it. And I think at the beginning of this book, they have, like, a specific, like, company that they work for, that they bring their hauls back to. But one day, while they are out collecting their stuff, they find they hear their system picks up a distress signal from a life pod, and they take the life pod in, not expecting anything to actually still be alive in it. But when they open it up, there's a baby girl inside of it, and she has, like, a horn sticking out of her head, and she has hoofed feet and, like, I think 4 fingers on each hand. Like, she's an alien species that they're not familiar with. But they're like, well, we can't just send her back out there, you know, like, she'll die. So they start taking care of her. You know, she gets basically 3 dads. And it's their story with this unicorn girl who when they go back to their little company, the company tries to take her and tries to use her for like you know, they want to take her in and basically take away everything that makes her special, like do surgery on her to remove her horn and like all of that, and like integrate her into this society. And those miners, they're like, absolutely not. And so they steal her back from the people that originally like took her away, saying that they weren't fit to raise her. And it's a whole thing of them basically becoming fugitives because they took her, and still trying to raise her and still trying to figure out who she is. And then there's also this whole other plot underneath this whole going on about child labor that's being used on some of these planets, and the awful conditions that children are being sold into, that all end up being related back to the unicorn girl and how she ends up helping these children. It's a great first book in a series, and it is a series, and I am so excited to dive more into the series at some point eventually. It's one of those that I definitely have to buy the books because there's no other reading options really, because it's not available through the library. If I'm gonna buy the book, I'm gonna buy a physical copy, and I'm not gonna buy an ebook. But I do eventually want to read this entire series. And Anne McCaffrey, she is really well known for her Dragon Riders of Pern series, which I have also read. So I actually had read this all the way back in middle school. And let me tell you, I did not understand it very well in middle school. Rereading it as an adult was a delight. Alright, next up. This one was definitely a book talk favorite. And book talk favorites always kind of make me a bit nervous because they're not always the best. Like, they're kind of hit or miss. This one was definitely a hit. Blood Over Brighthaven was a fantastic book. It follows, again, this main character. She is the first, like, female mage to be, like given, like, a full title and full research rights. And her and these other mages, they're trying to put something together that will make them stand out, and she feels a lot of pressure because, again, first female mage, she feels like she has to perform well, and that if she doesn't perform well, the fate of all the other women who want to be mages and all the other girls who dream about being mages rests on her being able to succeed. But on top of all of this, there is also this other, I don't know if race is the right word to use, but I'll use it. There's another race of people that were not indigenous to the city, but have instead been forced into the city because it's the only place that's safe from this thing known as the Blight. And the Blight basically just, like, unravels people. Like, it just completely, like, takes them apart and kills them. And absolutely awful way to die. So they all end up congregating into this city, their tribes completely destroyed, and the people that run this city treat them like garbage. So this book definitely follows, like, interesting themes of, like, morality and like because the main character, she definitely is guilty of thinking bad of these people, because that's what has been taught to her her whole life. And upon meeting one of them and working with one of them, she slowly realizes that everything that she was taught is wrong. And how she comes across, like, how she deals with that mentally is really interesting to see. And I know a lot of people hate this main character, but I personally really liked her. And it also kind of follows the themes of, like, systematic oppression and how the systems are in place to keep the people that are oppressed, which are very important themes we have, especially in today's society. Like, it's definitely something people need to read. I definitely need to check out the other standalone that this author has, Sword of Kaigen, I think it's called. I definitely need to check it out now. Up next, another heavy hitter for societal messaging. I also read Chain Gang All-Stars. This is following, it's basically a reality TV show where prisoners fight to the death, and if you kill a certain number of people, you are then released. But it's also, like, it takes years, and no one, I think there was one person out of however many years that they were doing this that has actually succeeded in is like getting out. And in particular, we follow this one chain. That's what they're called, like the different groups. And usually, like, so the rule is that everyone in one chain, they never fight each other. They're always fighting other people. And so the chain is kind of like supposed to be like a group that's like supposed to be working together. And they're always being filmed. There's always cameras on them every single second of the day. They're basically always live streaming their actions. And like even like them taking baths, them eating. There's always a camera on them. They have no privacy. But they're like stars. But they're also like people that have committed crimes. And so it's kind of juggling like the dystopian concept of like, first off, because like again, most prisoners are people of color, so it explores not only how the system is rigged against people of color, but also how like the sports system and like super intense sports and the way that people regard celebrities that are celebrities because of them being sports stars, how that's also kind of leads back to the fact that most sports stars are also people of color, and how it all kind of leads back to I'm trying to figure out how the best way to phrase it, like how we commodify black bodies, I think is the way I want to say it. And it's just really good. And I don't want to get too much into like the depths of the story itself, but the ending, it's one of those endings that I had to go back and do it again, because I was like, when I read this ending, it better be something different than what I'm reading right now. And it wasn't. It didn't change. All right, up next, Howl's Moving Castle. Complete change of tone. This is, if you don't know, this is a cozy fantasy. This is the book that the anime movie was based off of. However, if you love the movie, do know that this book, I mean, it's not like completely different, but it is very, very different. Like, while the movie follows the same general plot structure of this book handles it completely different. The Witch of the Waste is a completely different character in this. The enemy is a completely different enemy in this. It's still the Witch of the Waste. Like, the Witch of the Waste is the enemy. Howl does not turn into a Birdman in this, though he is technically cursed. And it still definitely follows Sophie. And let me start from the beginning if you don't know what Howl's Moving Castle is, if you've never seen the Studio Ghibli movie. This book follows Sophie, the main character. She works in a hat shop that her father owned, and then her stepmom took over when her father died. And she has these two sisters, but because Sophie's the oldest, she always assumes that nothing will ever come of her life. That the oldest never gets anything special, and that there's going to be great things destined for her younger siblings, but not for herself. One of her younger siblings is sent to work at a bakery, I think it is, and the other one is sent to learn witchcraft with a nice witch that lives in the woods. And she continues to work at the hat shop. Well, it turns out that her hats are super popular and people love them, and they say they might even have like a slight magic touch. So the Witch of the Waste pays her a visit and curses her to look old, basically. Like, they cursed her into an elderly body. And so she goes on this quest and breaks into Howl's Moving Castle and basically makes herself at home. She makes a deal with the fire demon, and her deal is if she can figure out how to break his contract with Howl and set him free, he will break the curse on Sophie. So that's the basis of it. It's just, again, really cozy. Like, if you want something that is light and funny, and the romance is very slow, like, it's very much an undercurrent of romance because she is old for most of the book. But when it hits at the end, I was like, giggling, kicking my feet at the very end. So yeah. And also, let's a pause for this Fairy Loot special edition of it. I hadn't read this book before when I bought the special edition, but I love the special edition so much. I had to buy it just because I knew I was gonna like this book because I like the movie. Alright, next. This one's another, like, thriller. I don't know if it counts as a psychological thriller, but it's Immaculate Conception. This story follows again, the main character. Also, if you wonder why I keep calling them the main character and I haven't said any names besides this one, honestly, it's because I can't remember most of their names. And I feel really bad about that, but I literally, for the life of me, cannot remember most of these characters' names. But that's fine. Immaculate Conception is about this main character is an art student, and in this world, there is like a wall between the poor people and the rich people. Like a literal wall, force field wall was built to keep the poor people out. The poor people do not have any access to the social media content the rich people are getting. They do not get any access to the clothes, resources, any of that. But she gets a scholarship where she gets to enter this art school. And when she feels like inadequate compared to all these other students, but she ends up becoming best friends with the all really quirky and weird, but also really talented artist, and they develop a really like interconnected friendship. And because like the other artist girl, Justine slightly, she suffers severely from depression. Like her depression is like eating her alive when she's in school, but the connection that she makes with the main character really helps get her through it, and it continues to follow them like throughout their lives. And it kind of goes back and forth in the first half between what had happened in the past and where the main character is now as a famous artist. But you definitely, like, the path that she ends up going to get to that point is definitely winding and not what you expect. It definitely, like, this also touches on not only like the, you know, like the, I'm forgetting what it's specifically called, performance art. It talks about performance art and how whether or not that is a valid form of art, and the way like people's reactions to it, as well as the artists' minds of those that do performance art. But it also, like, the rise of performance art in this book is directly tied to the use of AI art and generative AI for people to make art themselves. Like, these art students were literally struggling to make any pieces because any pieces they tried to make was technically made using AI at some point by someone else who technically then already had rights to that concept. Not even the same piece, because obviously if that person was to make the piece themselves, it'd look different. But because it's what they wanted to do was already done by AI, they literally couldn't. So that adds an interesting layer to it, though the AI wasn't as big as I was led to believe. So, like, disclaimer on that, but it does play a part. And you basically get to see how toxic the friendship between these two women end up being. Like, the main character ends up being so filled with jealousy and almost like contempt that her friend has all this talent and like lets it fall through her fingers. But when her friend finally does get success, if she feels like her friend just left. And it definitely, like, there's just some interesting friendship dynamics here that make what happens in the second half of the book really, really interesting, because there's this whole technology, because, like, this also does kind of tie into technology, too, like, the advancement of technology and how that can affect art as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Like, if I go start really diving into the technological aspects of this, I'm going to start spoiling the book. So you'll just have to read it yourself. Bear with me. We're on the last few books here. Okay, up next is Welcome to the Humdum Dog Bookshop. This is a cozy, pretty short read about a woman who opens a bookstore and kind of the day-to-day life. Like, it's basically a slice of life of someone who owns the bookstore, and like how she manages the bookstore, the kinds of like things she's thinking about, what kind of like how she picks what books she's stocking the shelves with. You know, like, oh, she opens up like a coffee area, and like the guy she hires to do the coffee, and also his own life and how his job at the bookstore like really helps him out like mentally. And it really just focuses on like pursuing happiness and what happiness looks like and what peace looks like. And so it was really fun. It was a really fun, cozy read, and it like really touched me. It like settled into my soul and just made me feel more content in my life. It made me want to like pursue satisfaction. Like, that's really what all this is like finding a life that you're satisfied with, which is a great. All right, next up, The Wild Huntress. Now, this book, it follows 3 different characters. One is a huntress who, as a baby, her mom was a midwife, and she was taken one day to be the midwife of, they call them the other folk, which are basically the fae, and she delivers a baby from this fae woman, the other fae couldn't deliver this baby for her because the fae woman had iron in her, and the iron was making her go crazy, and the other fae couldn't be near the iron either, so it was up to the midwife to deliver this baby. And they always anoint their babies with this magic oil, and after the midwife anoints the baby with this magic oil, her baby that she had taken with her, because they woke up in the middle of the night and there was no one else there, so she had to take her newborn baby with her. Her baby starts crying, and without thinking, she like wipes away her baby's tear and gets this magic oil into her baby's eye. And since then, she makes her baby wear an eye patch with iron in it and so nobody can see that, and nobody can know. Because specifically the other folk told her that she has to hide it. But growing up, the girl finds out that with her eye that got the oil in it, she can see the Fae world, and so she starts using this power and becomes a huntress and starts hunting the Fae that are going iron crazy and killing people. So she hunts the monsters that are attacking the human cities and stuff. The second point of view is this man, and he is part of a family that all have magic within them. His magic in particular, he can speak to the forest and nature and the trees and plants and stuff, and he can just basically sing and they will do his will. But in exchange though, his body's very frail. He doesn't heal very well. It's the cost of magic on him is his body cannot keep up. But he has other siblings. One of his siblings can summon fire, the other one can manipulate metal, and their uncle is the king of their little province, and the uncle's gonna name the fire wielder king. But the main character, he does not want his brother to be king because his brother is cruel. So he makes a deal with his uncle that he will name somebody else if a certain requirement is met. And then the third point of view is this man who is the prince, because the whole Wild Hunt, it's kind of like a celebration between the friendship of the human king of one province and the other king of the Fae realm. And they do this wild hunt every single year to kind of solidify their friendship. And the third point of view guy, he is the son of the human king in this. And he was kidnapped as a baby and raised by a monster up until he was 7, when a farmer saved him from this monster and took him in and raised him as a farmhand instead. But he still feels like as he grew up that he was still a monster. And then he finds out that he's a prince, and he gets taken away from the only family he's actually known to now be raised as a prince. And he's expected to take place in this wild hunt. Or take part in this wild hunt. It follows interesting Celtic folklore. There's definitely Celtic words in this, but the overall story of this was fantastic. It's definitely a little bit of a slow build to get to the wild hunt itself, but it's so worth it to establish who these characters are before they all intermingle. I wouldn't say that there's a love triangle in this, but there kind of is a little bit. The love is very much a subplot, or I guess I should say the romance is very much a subplot, but the kind of different themes it explores, the writing is all beautiful. So I got another author that I'm definitely going to be checking out more of her books, because I need to know if all her books are this good. Finally, we're down to the last one, a book that I finished a couple weeks ago, and that's Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This one has been on my list for a long time. I've been curious about V.E. Schwab for a long time. I've heard good things, and the good things were earned. I loved Vicious. I knew like going into it that the story was about like kind of like superhero supervillains, that these two were like these two men were, as like a college thesis or whatever, were experimenting in and end up with superpowers. But man, did I not expect for the events that took place to be the events that take place. Like when I heard that, oh, and like one of them becomes a superhero and the other one becomes a supervillain, I wasn't expecting it to be so gray. Like I definitely thought who the villain and who the hero was going to be black and white, and it was not by any means. It definitely explored like morality and like what makes someone a hero, and I loved that. Absolutely loved that. It just, there were so many interesting angles, and I think this is a duology. And so I definitely need to read the second book to find out what happens, because there's definitely, the ending definitely has some repercussions, I'm gonna say. So yeah. I'm sorry this was a long one. There's just so many books. I like read so many good books this year. I'm overall really happy with my reading year this year. I've definitely read a lot of standalones. There's definitely so many series that I need to dive into next year. But I also want to focus on reading more physical books next year. So we'll see. Like I want to read more of the books I already own. Because a lot of the books that I read this year were either on Kindle Unlimited or through the library. Which I did use my library quite a bit. And I still continue to plan to use my library up through the coming year. Like, I'm not going to stop getting books from the library, but I'm going to focus on usually keeping them to audiobooks instead, because I can listen to audiobooks at work and I can get through them a lot quicker than the physical or the ebooks I get from the library. But I have a TBR shelf that is overflowing, and I would actually like to make a good dent in it next year. But yeah, and I would say, again, my top three is definitely, and I don't have a specific order for these top three because I love these three like more or less equally, but it would have to be, actually this is kind of hard because there's like 4 books in my mind right now that I'm debating. But The Raven Scholar is definitely on there. The Incandescent is definitely on there. And the ones that I can't figure out, like the ones that are kind of tied, are The Sirens and The Wild Huntress. Like those, I guess I'll say top 4. Those were like my top 4 books of the entire year. So obviously I'm on the right track, considering that like 2 of those books were read pretty recently. So yeah, I feel like I've just been really into dark academia books, to be honest. And like most of these books here fit that vibe very, very well. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you did, leave in the comments, what were your favorite books of the year? What do you want to read next year? Or are there any books on this list that you've read, and tell me what you think about them? Are there any books on this list that you haven't read and you now want to? And don't forget to like, share if it pleases you. I don't know who you would share this with, but might as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.